What's going on, guys? It's Cimoooooooo. So today I'm bringing to you my updated Salamangreat deck profile for the August 2019 format. Now you guys may have seen some footage from last week where I uploaded Salamangreat actually being able to compete in the current metagame, even though Salamangreat, Gazelle, and Circle have gone to 1. So I want to go ahead and bring you guys my own personal build of something I've been experimenting with, just to show you guys that this deck is still very viable. I'm not sure if it's still tier 1, but it's still able to compete against some of the top contenders, and some of you guys have been looking for ideas, and I thought this would be a great video to bring you guys. Also, be sure to check out the links below if you're going to be in the Philadelphia area for Pro Play Tour Philadelphia. It's a $2,000 prize pool, 20 bucks to enter, and I'll be there doing live stream commentary for the event. Who knows, maybe Salamangreat will take it. We'll just have to see. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. So kicking things off, we have the one lone Gazelle herself, Gazelle. It's pretty much, again, it sucks that this card had to go to 1. I think this card was going to 1 regardless. I think Circle's probably worse in some ways, but again, Gazelle, you still got to play it. It's still the heart and soul of the deck. You just have to find other ways to get to it, which we're going to discuss a little bit later on. So next up, we have 3 copies of Salamangreat Spinny. Some people were playing 2 of this previously. I think now that Gazelle and Circle are at 1, you have to max out on this. You have to max out on every single card that can essentially turbo you into a Mirage Stalio, because if you can get into Mirage Stalio, the deck can still do everything it was capable of doing before. You just now have to find more ways to be able to get to Gazelle, just since you don't have as many copies in your deck, losing the 2 Gazelle and 2 Circle. So 3 Spinny I feel like is mandatory, as well as 3 Foxy, again for the exact same reason. Foxy's probably like the 3rd best monster in this deck, so we want to make sure we max out on it. The card filtering is great, and the recursion is also a bonus. Now for some 1-ups, we have 1 Jack Jaguar, 1 Falco, and 1 Fowl. These are your rank 4 enablers, but they're all just really good cards. Jaguar is good for the recursion and link climbing, Falco's good for just being able to recycle cards, and then Fowl's also good just for helping turboing into your 4s, while also simultaneously being able to shut off some of your opponent's back row. So just 1 of each. You don't really want to play too much more than that, and that's pretty much all for the Salamangreat cards. Next, we're going to go into a, I guess, honorary Salamangreat card, Flame Buffalo. We have to max out on this card now because we need to have as much consistency as possible to replace what we lost with Gazelle and Circle going to 1. And Flame Buffalo is an excellent card. Being able to just draw 2 cards deeper into your deck is really good. It says a majority of your cards do have the ability to special summon themselves from the graveyard. You're not really missing too much, and we want to play as many targets as possible to make sure that Flame Buffalo is always going to be online. You definitely want to max out on this card. It's also not a bad normal summon either if you have to start off with it, and just something you definitely want to have. Now for the new inclusion to the deck. We are playing 3 copies of Backup Secretary. So for those of you who don't know what this card does, essentially if you control a Cyberse monster, you can special summon Backup Secretary from your hand, but you can only use that effect once per turn. So why am I maxing out on this? Because there's other cards you could play to help facilitate the rank 3 engine. Like you could play stuff like Psychic Wielder, you could play Crusadia Reclusia, which is also a fire. So there's like other cards you might think of. Why Backup Secretary? Well, Backup Secretary actually just pretty much fits the bill in all possible angles. So let's start off with the fact that if you open multiple copies of Backup Secretary, you can normal one and special the other, and you can go into Mirage Stalio. So multiple copies in your opening hand actually isn't too bad. The majority of your deck is Cyberse, which means you're pretty much always going to have a way to get into Backup Secretary as your extender to get into Mirage Stalio, so that's always nice. Let's also talk about the fact that it is a Cyberse type, which means you can pitch it off of your Flame Buffalo if you absolutely have to draw 2 cards deeper into your deck. The amount of synergy that Backup Secretary has with this deck I think is incredible, and I think it's definitely the route to go if we're focusing on a rank 3 turbo build getting us to Mirage Stalio, because remember, like I said, as long as you can get to a Mirage Stalio, you pretty much have full combo. So this is basically the next best option in my view for getting there, and once you start playing with the card yourself, you're going to understand why it's as good as it is. So I definitely think this is the route to go moving forward. You can go ahead and let me know down in the comments what you think. Moving on though with the last we have 1 Lady Debug, because it's still at 1. This is debatable if you want to play this because it's not nearly as powerful as it was before. However, I still think it's nice, and it's pretty much still one of your best starters, so you might as well still play it. Now for the hand traps. 3 copies of Fantastical Dragon Phantasme. I don't want to say this card's like mandatory in the deck now, but I feel like it kind of is just because of the amount of consistency lost with the last ban list. Phantasme is so good at just being able to fix all the different cards in your hand and just being able to sculpt. It gives you a big monster, also protecting you from decks like Sky Strikers. I think just having that inherent consistency boost, especially when you're going second, is really key. Phantasme was already being played in Salamangreat, but I think now it's probably even more important than it was before. Then we have 3 copies of Ash Blossom. This is obviously standard. 3 copies of Effect Veiler. This is also pretty standard for the Salamangreat build as well. And then we're going to be playing 2 copies of Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit, rounding out our hand trap lineup to, it's technically 8, but you have the 3 Phantasme to dig you deeper, so kind of like 11 in a way, just depending. This is the best lineup. There's also a reason we're playing Ogre over something like Impermanence, just due to the fact that it doesn't conflict with Phantasme. You can Phantasme into Ogre and still use it, whereas you can't with something like Impermanence. There's also another reason we're playing Ogre, which I will also discuss a little bit later. So that's it for the monsters. Pretty heavy monster lineup as always. Now moving on to the spells. 3 copies of Signet Mining. This card is just mandatory now because of the fact we lost so much consistency. Mining's still a really good card though. It's basically just fetches whatever you want, and I think that's exactly what you need. We have the 1 lone copy of Salamangreat Circle, you know, rest in peace, but it is what it is. It's something that you still are going to want to play even though it's at 1. 1 Sanctuary because it enables all the Reincarnation Link summoning, and the 1 Will of the Salamangreat just because it's an incredible recursion tool. I think 1's enough. You probably don't need to go over that, but it's still a very good card you want to have. And then the last spell, again, a little bit of spice here, 1 copy of Emergency Teleport. So Ghost Ogre is actually, in fact, a Psychic. So in tandem with the rest of the rank 3 facilitation, this will allow you to use Ghost Ogre as an extender to get into your Mirage Stalio, just giving you 1 more way to access it and boosting that consistency by a few more percentage points. Like I said, it's also nice because even though you draw it and maybe you don't need it to make your Mirage Stalio, you can just set E-Telly on your field and then summon a Ghost Ogre during your opponent's turn and have another form of disruption. So going first or going second, E-Telly is going to be incredible, and I've been liking it a lot just from my testing with the deck. Now moving on to the trap cards, there's only 5 of them. We have 1 copy of Salamangreat Roar, 1 copy of Salamangreat Rage. This should really be no surprise. We're obviously playing Salamangreat. You could arguably play 2 copies of Roar just to have a better chance of hard drawing it, since it is a little bit difficult now with the consistency reduction. However, I still think 1 and 1 is fine because you don't want to see them too often. But then we're playing the big boys. Not 1, not 2, but 3 copies of Solemn Judgment. This is something I took out of the OCG's book, and honestly, why not, right? Solemn Judgment's one of the most powerful cards in the game. It's always going to be live because you can always pay half your life points, and it stops some of the most just insane cards. It stops spells, it stops traps, it stops summons. Like, yeah, it doesn't stop monster effects where Strike is arguably a little bit better, especially if we're in a monster-heavy format, but again, just stopping the summons can pretty much just end people's turns, and just having Solemn Judgment backing up everything else you have on your Salamangreat board can honestly just win you the game straight off. So I've been liking it a lot. Again, you can maybe swap them out for Strikes if you don't want to play Judgments, but I think Judgment is too good not to play, especially in a control style deck like this. Moving on to the extra deck though, we have 3 copies of Salamangreat Balinks. This needs no explanation whatsoever. Basically, you just want to have as many as possible to protect your board. That's really all there is to it. We've got 3 copies of Sunlight Wolf, again for the exact same reason. You just want to go ahead and get to this as quickly as possible, start Reincarnation Link summoning it, different things like that. It's kind of the, I would say the extra deck heart and soul of your deck, so to speak. We've got the 2 copies of Heat Leo. You don't need 3. Typically, when you're using your Heat Leos, you're probably just going to win the game outright, so you should pretty much be perfectly okay just with using the 2. You could bump it to 3 if you wish, but I really don't feel like it's necessary, especially because you can recycle with like Jack Jaguar if you like absolutely had to. Then we have 1 copy of Nightmare Phoenix, 1 copy of Hita, the Fire Charmer Ablaze, 1 Borreload Dragon. Phoenix is pretty much just for the spell and trap destruction. Hita is just amazing for link climbing and just taking opposing ashes. And Borreload actually is very difficult for some decks to out, and it's just a very nice card to be able to link climb into. You don't really need Boral Sword, although you could play it if you wish. I feel like Borreload's kind of just like the safe option to remove threats that this deck can't really out very easily naturally. And that's going to do it for the Link monsters. And then wrapping things up with the last few cards, we have one copy of Salamangreat Violet Chimera. You may notice I didn't have Fusion of Fire in the main deck. It's because it's in the side deck. Fusion of Fire is a very strong card, and if you find a spot, you can go ahead and play it in your main deck. However, I feel like it's a very bad card to draw going first, and typically you're going to have the game on lock without needing to use Fusion of Fire. Yeah, it's good going second, but again, I'd rather just side deck it in. So that's why it's in here, even though there is no Fusion of Fire. But again, like I said, if you feel like you want to swap out a card for Fusion of Fire, absolutely be my guest. Then we have two copies of the Mirage Stalio. I like playing two just so you don't have to rely on Jack Jaguar recycling the only one if you do choose to play one. Just nice, gives you a little bit more flexibility in that regard. And last but not least, the one copy of Abyss Dweller. Abyss Dweller, still one of the strongest cards, especially if you're going up against these combo heavy strategies. Orcus is still running around, Danger Thunder is still running around. There's plenty of graveyard centric decks. You could swap that out for any other rank 4 of your choosing. You could go Baguska if you so wish, or anything like that. But I still think Dweller's really strong, and honestly probably one of the reasons you might still want to keep playing Salamangreat. So guys, that's going to do it for my updated Salamangreat deck profile. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think, if there's any other suggestions you may have for any other Salamangreat players out there. I'd really love to hear your thoughts. So guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Be sure to like the video as always. Subscribe to the channel for more amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content. And if you found this video helpful, consider supporting me on Patreon or becoming a YouTube channel member. Because just by showing your support in any way that you can, you're investing in my ability to continue bringing you amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content. So thanks so much again, and we'll see you next time.